So I've got this 2005 Nissan Sentra here. The lady brought it over because she thinks her cooling fans aren't working because of a front fender bender she got into. She thought that the radiator was touching the cooling fan, preventing it from spinning, and then she said sometimes it doesn't want to start. So she said this morning it didn't want to start, but then it eventually did. She drives it over here, and guess what, guys? The starter has taken a crap while it's here. You know, I wasn't expecting this to happen like this. So the jobs that I had lined up for today, guess what? They get canceled because now I got a car that won't move stuck in my driveway. So this sucks. You know, the lady is like, well, we could order the part on Rock Auto. And now I'm thinking Rock Auto is no longer an option because the car's stuck here. This is an AutoZone type of deal because you're gonna have to go and get the starter, and this thing is getting put on today. Even if the starter from AutoZone costs more than getting it from Rock Auto. This sucks. I'm just kind of really frustrated with this. Anyone who watches my channel knows that the biggest thing I hate is a car that is stuck in my driveway and it won't freaking move. Absolutely annoying. And yes, I tried tapping on the starter while she was turning the key, and it did not make a difference. So it looks like I'm going to be changing the starter right here. I'm like 98% sure it's a bad starter, okay? But just to do a few basic checks. Number one, I put my jump starter directly on the battery to try to give it more juice. Didn't make a difference. Number two, I grabbed my power probe and I disconnected the wire right there going to the S terminal. When I turn the key, we do get power right there, so it's not that, which I wasn't suspecting because the starter clicks every time I turn the key, but it doesn't hurt to check it. Next thing I did is, in case the starter doesn't have a good ground, what I did is I grabbed my jump starter, I put the positive to right here on the positive post of the battery, but the negative lead, I put it right here, right on the engine block. So what that does is, in the case that the starter doesn't have a good ground, we are supplying a ground directly to the block with the jump starter. I hope that makes sense. And again, it didn't make a difference. We still get the same old click out of the starter. The last thing I want to do, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it, is do a voltage drop test on the power wire going from the positive post to the post on the starter. But it looks like it's in a real shit location. And guys, like I said, I'm like 98% sure this thing needs a starter. Oh, I even rotated the engine crank by hand, while using a ratchet of course, but by hand, just to make sure that the engine isn't locked up, which of course I'm not suspecting that because she just drove it here and turned it off and it was just fine. But still, you don't want to rule that out. I've actually had that happen to me where someone wanted to put a starter on their car and the engine would not rotate. The engine was actually locked up, so changing the starter would not have fixed that car. That's why it's important to check things like that. Anyway, the engine rotates freely, no problems at all. It's starting to look more and more like a bad starter. The only test that I really don't want to do is that voltage drop test on the positive wire, only because it's a real pain in the butt to do. The things I do for you guys. So I'm underneath the car right now. You can see right there on the positive wire going to the starter, you can see I got my lead connected, my alligator clamp. See it right there? So that's directly on the nut. Ideally you want to get it on the stud, but there just isn't enough threads to clamp onto it, so I'm right on the nut right there. And let's go up top now so I can show you what's going on. And up top I got my other lead connected to the positive battery post. I got it connected to my scope right here. So let's go ahead and bring this inside the car and we'll turn the key over. All right, so I got the voltmeter connected. We're on channel A, as you can see. And you can see it's reading 0.2 volts, which is good. And when we turn the key and attempt to crank over the engine, that should stay more or less exactly where it's at. If we get like 12 volts right there, then yeah, we have a problem. So hopefully you guys can hear that starter clicking. And that voltmeter is not changing, which means we do not have voltage drop. This is simply just a bad starter. I feel like I've covered all my bases already. One final thing to show you guys that my equipment is working. I took the one off of the block that I had. Let's put it directly to positive since we have the other one on negative already. And there we go, 12 volts. It says negative because I have my polarity reversed, but that's not a big deal. We still have our 12 volts. So Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the meter, the leads, everything works. There's no voltage drop. We simply just have a bad starter going on here. That's it, guys. It's a done deal. This thing needs a starter, so I'm gonna go ahead and start pulling the starter out. The owner is on her way to drop off the new one. As you can see, I got the old starter off of the car. Honestly, not too bad of a job. And of course, the owner did get in the zone, auto zone. So we got a Duralast unit right here. Let's go ahead and pop this bad boy on. It looks slightly different. You see the casting design, like right here, that's rounded off. You see that has a slightly different design, but it looks like it's gonna fit. Everything else seems to match up. So you know what, let me get the CRC right now. This is stuff I like to use. Works absolutely fantastic to prevent corrosion. So I'm just gonna go ahead and spray the lower one since it's already got the connection. The top one I'm not gonna spray it until after I got the positive battery cable connected to it. So never have too much of this stuff, and that's gonna protect you from corrosion. And let's go ahead and pop this bad boy on. So I got the new starter in place. It's completely bolted down, got all the connections made. So before I go ahead and put that rubber boot over the positive wire, like I said, I'm gonna go ahead and spray it with CRC. It's good enough. So just like that, got the rubber boot over it. Everything's good to go. Got the S terminal right here already connected, and this thing's pretty much ready to go. Now, one thing I noticed while I was down here is that this engine mount is actually broken, or this torque mount, whatever you want to call it. Look at this. I thought the people who changed the engine on this car, that they forgot to reconnect this, but looking at it closely, it's not that it's not reconnected, it's that the metal has snapped, so it needs a whole new bracket. You can see where the other end is on the block still. I've always wondered why this engine rocks back and forth so much, and this is why. It's because it has nothing to stop the engine from rocking, and that most likely explains why this right here happened, because the engine is flexing so much. There's nothing to stop it, so yeah, it's gonna break the exhaust. Anyway, let's go back up there, reconnect the battery, and make sure this bad boy starts up. All right, so the battery is reconnected. I loosely just put the top of the air box right here so we could plug in the mass airflow sensor. I just want to make sure it starts up, and that's it. Then I'll turn it off and put everything back together. Don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but this post right here is brand new. When the owner was having starting issues, like intermittently, the husband thought that it might be the connection right here. I guess it looked pretty bad, so he went ahead and installed this himself, but to no avail, because it didn't fix the problem. That wasn't the problem. It was obviously a bad starter. So battery is reconnected. I guess we got the green light to go ahead and crank it over. All right, moment of truth. I have not tried it yet. It's my first time. Fire in the hole. Yay. All right. Would you look at that? Would you look at that? So I got everything reassembled, everything's plugged in and back to where it should be. So let's go ahead and start it up one more time. No problems at all. This is one thing I like about starters, or you know what, honestly, I could just say about anything, as long as you do your testing. Like the whole time that I was installing the starter, I was never like, oh, I cross my fingers, hope it'll work. After testing everything and confirming what's good and what's not, I was very confident that the starter was going to fix this thing. And that's what comes along with diagnosing a car and getting down to the bottom of it before just shooting the parts cannon at it, because no one ever likes that feeling of you know, just spray and pray, right? So yeah, like I said, I was pretty confident. I knew it would start this car after testing it. Now, initially when the car first came in, I was kind of frustrated because I'm like, man, she just brought it over for me to look at her crashed bumper, and here the car dies. I was frustrated. I'm like, I had to cancel other jobs that I had planned for today because this crap just fell in my lap, okay? So after being frustrated with that, I wasn't really in the mood to go ahead and start testing things. I was just like, you know what, I'm throwing a starter at it no matter what. But I decided to just kind of, you know, calm down, take a break. It's not that big of a deal. Let's go through the process, and sure enough, the process pays off. Okay, so that's gonna be it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time. And we're back. I bet you thought we were done with this one, right? But no. So I talked to the owner, telling her that the starter is not working. The car starts up. She's like, oh, by the way, I know you just fixed the power steering, but it's not working again. So I'm like, great. So start up the car. And as you can see, I got the car up on the ramps. And sure enough, the power steering is not working. Hopefully you guys can hear that. I hear a little bit of squeal coming from the belt as I, put pressure on the power steering system. So let's go underneath the car, and hopefully it's something as simple as the tension on the belt. Maybe it just needs to be tightened up a little bit. So let's slide it underneath the car, see what's going on. First of all, let's go ahead and check the power steering fluid. And there is fluid in there. It's not empty. So that's good. It does look a little moist around the pump. Looks pretty wet to me. Keep in mind that was a junkyard pump. We did not install a new pump. They got me everything from the junkyard. So here's the belt for the power steering. And yeah, I'd say we could use a little bit of extra tension on this thing. It feels a little bit too loose for my liking. But if we come back here, you can see we have a pretty decent leak of power steering fluid. See that drip that's about to come right off of that bracket? It looks like it's coming right out that fitting with the banjo bolt, that big bolt right there. And now that I remember correctly, since we had a junkyard part that we were installing, there was no brand new crush washers for that banjo bolt, so I had to reuse the old crush washers. And I think this is the result of that. The crush washers are not sealing, and we have that leak. So we got two problems going on here. We have a leak at the banjo bolt, and to me the belt could use a little bit of tightening. So what I'm going to do is let's put some extra tension on the belt, and let's see if we could turn that banjo bolt just a hair to maybe crush down the washer a little bit more. You don't want to overdo it. I really don't want to strip the threads on this thing, because then it's going to need a whole nother pump on it. So yeah, got to be careful with this thing. Okay, so I got my 1/2" ratchet right here with a 24 mil, because that's what the banjo bolt is. And guys, I could not get that banjo bolt to turn like a single millimeter. I mean, that thing it's tight, okay? Good amount of pressure on it, and it wouldn't budge at all. That tells me it's pretty tight, and if I keep forcing it, the only thing that's gonna happen is I'm gonna end up stripping out those threads, which I really don't want. Clearly this is a case of those crush washers being worn out and they are no longer doing their job. So I'm not gonna mess with that right now. It needs new crush washers. But for right now, let's see if we could fix this tension issue, see if it makes a difference. I don't know if it will. All right, so I'm all done tensioning the belt. It feels tighter. So let's go ahead, turn the engine on, see if it made a difference. If not, I'm gonna have to go ahead and call a bad power steering pump, because I can't see that little tiny drip that's coming out that thing completely taking on the whole system. You get what I'm saying? There's plenty of power steering pumps that leak like that and they still work. So for it to not work at all because of that tiny little drip coming off of there, the only thing I can think of is it has to be a bad pump from the junkyard. All right, so back in the car, let's go ahead and start it up. I don't want to move the wheels too much because I'm up on the ramps, but hey, guess what? The power steering seems to be working, guys. Let me go ahead and back this thing off of the ramps slowly. Oh, that engine just jumps so much because it's missing that lower torque mount. Okay, so now the car is fully on the ground. And there goes our power steering, guys. Just as I was thinking, like, there's no way in heck that tiny little drip is gonna take down the entire system. But if there's slack in the belt and it can't fully spin that pulley on the pump, yes, it will take down a power steering system. When the system is being stressed, we no longer have that squeal coming from the belt. So that's good. I'll let the owner know about the little drip that's coming off of there, and if we could somehow source out the new crush washers for that banjo bolt, we'll go ahead and get them swapped out. But besides that, at least the power steering works. It just you know, it blows my mind that I just did this repair for them a few weeks ago, and if the system stopped working, why didn't they let me know? It just blows my mind on why people don't tell me things like this right here. I'm not charging them anything extra for fixing this. Why? Because I was just in here, and clearly the belt tension not being correct is my fault. So, you know, all they had to do was bring it up to me, and I would have said bring the car over and I'll look into it and fix it, and of course no extra charge. The power steering is back to working once again. So I'm gonna go ahead, call the owner now and tell her, hey, your car now starts up, the starter's working great, and we have your power steering working once again. It was a pretty simple fix. So that's gonna be it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching.